Hi, everyone. I wanted to say hello, beginning of the week, and send out a little dispatch. Started up new interior, uh, submitted some work for a show in the Arvada Center here in Colorado, Art of the State. Every 3 years they do it. Hopefully, we'll pick a piece. I hope so. Beautiful day out. Really beautiful day out. Really nice. Gonna do a little work this afternoon. Looking forward to that. So, what have I got here? There's a lovely essay. I'm just going to read half of it this week. Jon Berger, Drawn to That Moment. It's an essay about a drawing he did of his father after his father passed away, died. This is from The Sense of Sight. When was this put out? It's a wonderful collection of essays. 1985. That was a while ago now. Unbelievable. Almost 40 years ago. That's crazy. Oh my God. All right. So I'm going to read half, send it on out. Next week I'll read the next one. Drawn to That Moment. When my father died recently, I did several drawings of him in his coffin, drawings of his face and head. There's a story about Kokoschka teaching a life class. Students were uninspired, so he spoke to the model and instructed him to pretend to collapse. When he had fallen over, Kokoschka rushed over to him, listened to his heart, and announced to the shocked students that he was dead. A little afterwards, the model got to his feet and resumed his pose. Now draw him, said Kokoschka, as though you were aware that he was alive and not dead. One can imagine that the students, after this theatrical experience, drew with more verve. That to draw the truly dead involves an ever greater sense of urgency. What you are drawing will never be seen again by you or by anybody else. In the whole course of time past, time to come, this moment is unique. The last opportunity to draw what will never again be visible, which has occurred once and which will never reoccur. Because the faculty of sight is continuous, because visual categories, red, yellow, dark, thick, thin, remain constant, and because so many things appear to remain in place, one tends to forget that the visual is always the result of an unrepeatable, momentary encounter. Appearances at any given moment are a construction emerging from the debris of everything which has previously appeared. It is something like this that I understand in those words of Cezanne, which so often come back to me. 1 minute in the life of the world is going by. Paint it as it is. Beside my father's coffin, I summoned such skill as I have as a draftsman to apply it directly to the task in hand. I say directly because often skill in drawing expresses itself as a manner, and then its application to what is being drawn is indirect. Mannerism, in the general rather than art historical sense, comes from the need to invent urgency, to produce an urgent drawing instead of submitting to the urgency of what is. Here I was using my small skill to save a likeness, as a lifesaver uses his much greater skill as a swimmer to save a life. People talk of freshness of vision, of the intensity of seeing for the first time. But the intensity of seeing for the last time is I believe, greater. Of all that I could see, only the drawing would remain. I was the last ever to look on the face I was drawing. I wept whilst I strove to draw with complete objectivity. As I drew his mouth, his brows, his eyelids, as their specific forms emerged with lines from the whiteness of the paper, I felt the history and the experience which had made them as they were. His life was now as finite as the rectangle of paper on which I was drawing, but within it, in a way infinitely more mysterious than any drawing, his character and destiny had emerged. I was making a record, and his face was already only a record of his life. Each drawing then was nothing but the sight of a departure. They remained. I looked at them and found that they resembled my father, or more strictly, that they resembled him as he was when dead. Nobody could ever mistake these drawings as ones of an old man sleeping. Why not? I ask myself. And the answer, I think, is in the way they are drawn. Nobody would draw a sleepy man with such objectivity. About this quality, there is finality. Objectivity is what is left when something is finished. I chose one drawing to frame and hang on the wall in front of the table at which I work. Gradually and consistently, the relationship of his drawing to my father changed, or changed for me. There are several ways of describing the change. The content of the drawing increased. The drawing, instead of marking the site of a departure, began to mark the site of an arrival. The forms drawn filled out. The drawing became the immediate locus of my memories of my father. The drawing was no longer deserted, but inhabited. For each form, between the pencil marks and the white paper they marked, there was now a door through which moments of a life could enter. The drawing, instead of being simply an object of perception with one face, had moved forward to become double-faced and worked like a filter. From behind, it drew out my memories of the past, whilst forwards, it projected an image which, unchanging, was becoming increasingly familiar. My father came back to give the image of his death mask a kind of life. If I look at the drawing now, I scarcely see the face of a dead man. Instead, I see aspects of my father's life. Yet if somebody from the village came in, he would see only a drawing of a death mask. It is still unmistakably that. The change which has taken place is subjective. Yet, in a more general sense, if such a subjective process did not exist, neither would drawings. The advent of the cinema and television means that we now define drawings or paintings as static images. What we often overlook is that their virtue, their very function, depended upon this. The need to discover the camera and the instantaneous or moving image arose for many different reasons, but it was not in order to improve on the static image, or if it was presented in those terms, it was only because the meaning of the static image had been lost. In the 19th century, when social time became unilinear, vectorial, and regularly exchangeable, the instant became the maximum which could be grasped, preserved. The plate camera and the pocket watch, the reflex camera and the wristwatch are twin inventions. A drawing or painting presupposes another view of time. I'm going to pause there. We've got a couple more pages, but that was a lot. So we'll pause there. Yeah, I'll pick it up next week. I'll send this out. Okay. Hope you're all well. Hanging in there. What a time. What a time. Okay. Keep drawing, keep painting, keep making stuff, do stuff, make stuff. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.